Hi everyone, welcome to the second FAS vlog here at Windshield Farm. I'm Joe Baker. Last time we were here in June on a very similar sunny day as it is today. We were very short of rain in June, as you'll remember. However, since then, in July we had 145 mil of rain, so the tables definitely did turn. And the whole crop which we were stood in last time, and we were slightly worried about yield, actually bulked out in the bottom. The grass came on really well, and we yielded around 7 to 7.5 bales an acre, which we were quite pleased with in the end. So the summer's been well for us here, and now on September the 8th we are looking forward to the winter planning and getting the feedstocks in. We've just recently finished making some hay in September, which was a bit of a shock to the system, but we've managed to make plenty of silage now and some hay. So from that point of view, we're ready for the winter, and we're now looking to plan our winter grazing and fodder crops for cattle, etc. Grass reseed under the whole crop due to the heavy rainfall in July has come on really well. 2 fields have established. The first 2 fields to be drilled established really well. The second was a little bit later established, so the grass is still just starting to come through well, and we haven't put any lambs on that field yet. Lamb performance has been a little bit slower in August for us. Some of the lambs, half of the lambs went to some red and white clover, rented grazing. They've done okay, and we've just drawn another 100 from them yesterday. The lambs that stayed at home, the other half of the lambs, we were a little bit short of clean grazing, just with it taking longer for the weather to clear for us to get the whole crop off the ground. So the reseeds were a little bit behind at home, so the clean grazing for the lambs at home was a little bit delayed, and because of that we had to dose again for nematodirus. So the lambs at home are now onto the arable silage aftermath, which is our clean grazing, and they are now doing well. Rotation wise, since weaning, the ewes have been mobbed up into 2 mobs. One bigger mob of mixed age ewes, which are doing sort of 2 or 3 days per 9 acre, 7 acre paddock, and they've got about 20 paddocks in front of them, so there's a lot of rest going on there, but they're also cleaning up the pasture really well. The cattle were bulling in 2 bulling groups, and we're rotating round on a bit of a shorter rotation come sort of July, but then now the bulls have been taken out, they're now into 1 mob again, and they're rotating as 1 mob. They've got 15 paddocks, and they're doing 2 days in each paddock, giving it a 30-day rest when they get back to the start. And we'll look to hopefully rotate the cattle well into November this year, if the weather stays the way it is. Some of the ewes may leave the farm and go to some rented grazing for a little bit, just to help us build even more covers for winter. But again, with the ewes, we hope to rotate well into the winter this year and save feedstocks for early of next year. When it comes to the lucerne, it's just been a good experiment this year and grown at 1,000 feet above sea level. Initially we have mown it. It had a lot of competition from the weeds, so we mowed it early in August and baled off what bales were there, which only came to 17. It was mainly just to get rid of the weeds and to free up the competition. Since then, the lucerne has really thrived, and as you can see, it's all across the field. It's doing really well. I think now I'm not going to be able to cut it for silage, so we potentially will just graze it lightly in the back end and then leave it and hopefully cut it for silage next year. This field that we're stood in today is deferred grazing for cattle in the winter, along with the kale crop. So we've 35 to 40 acres of kale, and we have 20 acres here of deferred grazing, which is what I direct drilled with rye in end of March, early April, when the sheep came off and went onto their lambing fields. So it's will be strip grazed with cattle pre-calving, and we direct drilled the rye as a bit of an experiment to see, as a pasture cropping experiment. As you can see, in places it's done really well. So this field was grazed 3 times with sheep on sort of split in half into 2 paddocks, sort of 10-acre paddocks, and it's split and it was grazed with sheep on 3 occasions for 3 to 4 days at a time. Well, actually the first time it was only grazed for a day, just quickly to knock the grass, and it's then now been shut up since the middle of July, and there's a good stand of grass to be grazed in the winter anyway, so some of the patches are barer, but the rye in places where it's competed with the grass better has done really well, so it's quite an interesting experiment really. Is that this field will do the cattle sort of February, March, later stage of pregnancy, and when they start calving, we'll strip graze it, give them a largest chunk to start with, and then we'll move the fence probably 4 to 5 metres every day, and give them a runoff back onto other grass. The field has been a bit of an insurance policy for us, and it's made us being a bit more resilient to drought. We didn't know quite how the summer was going to go, especially in June when we weren't getting any rainfall. So by having this field alongside the 2 fields of kale, it meant that if the kale failed in the heat, the grass deferred grazing was still there. And likewise, this year the kale has actually done really well as well, with the rain in July and August. So at the moment we're in a good position, but you know, we didn't know that would maybe be the case. So it's good to have both options going forward for the winter.